Good afternoon and welcome to Darllen Cymraeg revision sessions. This session will focus on GCSE Welsh second language and will be presented by Miss Stevens from e-sgol. The session will last around 45 minutes where the teacher will go through the relevant subject content. If you do have any questions, please use the question and answer section and we'll endeavour to answer your questions during the session. The session will be recorded with the recording and any relevant resources uploaded to the e-sgol website in the Darllen Cymraeg area shortly after this presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you over to Miss Stevens for the final session of this session of the Darllen Cymraeg revision sessions. Diolch.
Prynhawn da, croeso nôl, welcome back, and diolch yn fawr iawn am ymuno a'n sesiwn olaf, sef session 4 of the Darllen Cymraeg revision session. So thank you very much for joining us once again for the final revision session. Now heddiw, today, we're going to focus on Cwestiynau Darllen, so some reading questions that will come up in your Unit 3 and 4 papers that you're about to sit in the summer. Okay, so noda'r session heddi. So today we're focusing on recognising different types of words, revising positive and negative patterns, sentence patterns, so opinions and things like that, completing a reading question that looks directly at positive and negative points, using those sentence patterns to decide if a statement is true or false, and then we're going to look at how we're similar or different to somebody based on a reading question. Okay, so that's the plan for the next 45 minutes. As we've said earlier, if there's any questions, pop them in the question and answer section and we'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. So, to start us off, I would like you to try and have a look at the words on the screen. So we've got several words here in different green boxes, and what I'd like you to do is see if you can categorise them. So categoreiddio, okay? So we've got berfau, verbs. We've got ansoddeiriau positive, positive adjectives. Ansoddeiriau negyddol, negative adjectives. And then idiomau. Now, the reason I've chosen this task today is when you're doing a reading task and you're looking for positive or negative points, a lot of the wording that is used will help you, give you a clue as to whether or not that sentence is positive or negative. Okay, so I'll read the words out so you can do this. But if you want to just jot this grid down, or at least just put next to the word that you're writing, what type of word it is. Is it a berf, a verb, an ansoddair positive, an ansoddair negyddol, neu idiom? And then you'll be able to see whether or not you can recognise these in reading pieces later on, okay? So we've got unbersonol, personally. We've got afiach, which is unhealthy. We've got prynu, to buy. We've got bwyta, to eat. Ymlaciol, relaxing. Fel arfer, ffiaidd. We've got anodd. We've got mynd. Defnyddio, hawdd. Anhygoel, ac yn olaf wedyn ar y cyfan. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes now, 2 minutes to try and put those words in the relevant categories. Okay, and just think to yourself, if you've seen these words before, how have you seen them used? What context have you seen them used? Have you seen them used when you're after achos maen, which is when we usually use adjectives? Or have you seen them as used as kind of like sentence starters, which is when we normally use idioms? Have you seen them in the middle of a sentence, maybe after dwi'n, so it could be a verb, okay? So, a couple of funudau nawr ta I categoriddio'r geiriau fyna. Bant â chi te, off you go. Any questions, pop them in the chat box, okay? Diolch. If you're not sure as well, just guess, like always have a go at guessing where they go. And then when we go through them, then you could check your answers and you can kind of self-assess your work to make sure that you know which ones go where. Okay, so I'll give you another 30 eiliad, 30 seconds, and we'll start writing our answers in the chat if we can. Okay, and we'll see which words go where. Okay. Right, so can you start writing your answers in the chat then, please? What have you got for berfau, verbs? How many of those words there are verbs? How many of them are doing words? How many of those words could you stick dwi'n in front of, or mae'n in front of, or rydyn ni'n, we in front of, and it still makes sense? Okay, so let's have a look. What's the first one we have got? The first verb we have got is, let's have a look. We have bwyta. And bwyta means to eat. So if we put dwi'n in front of it, we would say dwi'n bwyta, I eat. So to eat is the verb, okay? So some people confuse bwyta with bwyd. Bwyta is the verb to eat, bwyd is the noun for food, okay? The next verb we've got on our list is the verb for to go, which is mynd, okay? Dwi'n mynd, I go, for example. Yr un nesa wedyn, the next one is a defnyddio, to use. Now, once again, it's quite similar to the adjective, defnyddiol, useful, but defnyddio is the verb to use. The next verb we've got is prynu, okay? Prynu, to buy. So those are our verbs done. We've got prynu, to buy, bwyta, to eat, defnyddio, to use, and we've also got mynd, to go. Let's have a look at the ansoddeiriau positive now, the positive adjectives. Can you pop your answers in there? So, Diane, lots of you got those ones. Pop your answers in the chat box. Which one of those words is a positive adjective? So which one of them would you use if you were saying dwi'n hoffi something, achos mae'n, and then you'd need an adjective? Or dwi'n mwynhau, achos mae'n, and you'd need an adjective. So try and do it by process of elimination if you're not sure as well. Look at the word and think, not quite sure with that one, or I think it may be an idiom. Well, don't do it. Or I know that one's an idiom, so it's not going to be an adjective. Okay, let's go through the answers. We've got, first one we've got is ymlaciol, relaxing. That's a positive adjective. Then we've got hawdd, which is a nice one, easy, hawdd, easy. And then we've got anhygoel, amazing. That's another positive one. And moving on now to the ansoddeiriau negyddol, the negative adjectives on our screen. So we've got afiach, which is the opposite of iach. Now, iach would be healthy. So afiach is unhealthy. So that's a negative one. So I don't like this food. Maybe because it's afiach, unhealthy. We've also got fiaidd. Fiaidd goes in the negative adjective section. Okay. Another one which is negative would be, those two are it, are they? Fiaidd and afiach, and anodd, difficult. Now, anodd, difficult, could I suppose be used in a positive sense, but fel arfer, usually it's a negative one, which leaves us with the idiomau, the idioms. So let's have a look at the idioms we've got. Bersonol, personally, that would be classed as a sentence starter phrase, an idiom phrase. Fel arfer, usually. And we've also got ar y cyfan, on the whole. So practice saying those. We've got bersonol, fel arfer, and ar y cyfan, on the whole. So they're good to add to your work to make your work a little bit more interesting. Okay, so keep those words in mind now when we're looking at the rest of the tasks to see if you recognise these in the work. Okay, so there we have them. So bwyta, defnyddio, mynd, and prynu, ymlacio, hawdd, ac anhygoel, anodd, which is difficult or hard, afiach and fiaidd, and fel arfer, bersonol, ar y cyfan. Okay, I'd like you to write your answers here in the chat box if you can. Can you work out what these key phrases mean? Now, these are key phrases that you're going to come across when you're doing reading and writing tasks. So I'll read them out so you can hear them. And if you pop their meaning in the chat, then we can go through them. Okay, so the first one on the left-hand side says, y manteision ydy. Can you think of what manteision might be? Then we've got yr anfanteision, okay, ydy. Y pwyntiau da ydy. You may have heard the word point da when you're doing your llafar, you're speaking. The middle column then, we've got yn debyg I. We've also got the word cywir. We've got y pwyntiau negyddol, so that's obviously going to be the opposite of y pwyntiau da. And then on the right-hand side, we've got yn wahanol I, and we've got the word anghywir as well. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of, about a minute or two here now, minute neu ddau fan hyn, I weithio allan to try and work out what these words mean. And think about when you may have heard them in class. Okay, Diane, so we've already had an answer in on the chat, which is fantastic. Y manteision ydy, the advantages are. Okay, so that's a good one if they're asking you for positive points from a text. Y manteision ydy, the advantages are. Now that phrase often comes up as well in writing tasks where they're asking you for the advantages of a particular thing. So maybe the advantages of learning Welsh or the advantages of living in an area, but they come up several times. Okay, so if manteision is advantages, yr anfanteision, the disadvantages. Okay, the disadvantages are. So yr anfanteision ydy whatever the disadvantages are. Pwyntiau da are the good points. So the good points are, okay, and y pwyntiau negyddol, the negative points are. So that may be useful for you if you're talking about advantages or disadvantages of a particular topic. Then we've got yn debyg I. Now that should be one you're quite familiar with. Yn debyg I, similar to. The E means to. Okay, so debyg I, similar to. And the opposite of debyg I is yn wahanol I, which is different to. Then we've got cywir and anghywir, the only two words left. Now, cywir is true and anghywir false. So cywir is correct, anghywir incorrect. Okay, so double check your answers against those. So ymantation ydy yr anfanteision ydy y pwyntiau da ydy yn debyg I, cywir, y pwyntiau negyddol ydy yn wahanol I, and anghywir. And I've written down the bottom that you can put dwi'n in front of a lot of these. So dwi'n debyg I am similar to. Dwi'n wahanol I am different to. Okay, so here's some tips for you for the questions we're about to look at. Okay, so we're going to put all of these tips now into context for you. So a good thing for you to do is to highlight keywords in both the question and the text. So if it's asking for pwyntiau da, if the question asks you for good points, then it would be worthwhile you looking for the adjectives, looking for the positive opinions and highlighting them so you know exactly where you are. Okay. If it asks you for similarities in two texts, look for maybe particular words that appear twice. So if it's saying, oh, what are the similarities between these two people? Well, if they both say dwi'n siarad and one says Cymraeg and one says Saesneg, well, the similarity or the difference may be that they speak a different language or they speak the same language. So look for keywords that appear in both texts. You can use the phrase then, mine nhw, which means they, to state what similarities are between them. So for example, say that Ben says dwi'n hoffi pêl-droed and Jodie says dwi'n hoffi chwarae pêl-droed. Then you could say, mine nhw, they hoffi pêl-droed, or you could say, my Ben a Jodie and hoffi pêl-droed. You can either use mine nhw, which means they, or you can use their names as well. Okay. And for the cywir anghywir tasks, the true or false tasks, they may not put the exact same wording in the question as they do in the text. So think about different ways to say the same phrases. So for example, dwi'n casau means the same as mae'n gas gyda fi. Okay, and another thing they may say is instead of, like for example, my Ellie and hoffi pêl-fasged, Ellie likes basketball, well they may say Ellie doesn't dislike basketball. Do you know what I mean? So they may put the positive to the negative. So they can word things the other way around there. Okay, so let's have a look at task Darllen un fan hyn. Okay, so we've got the first reading task that we're going to look at. So we've got three people here. We've got Jack, we've got Caddy, and we've got Kira. Okay, so I'll read you out what Jack says. So Jack says, Shwmae, Jack ydw i. Dwi'n mynd i ysgol olchfa yn Abertawe. Ar hyn o bryd, does dim swydd rhan amser gyda fi, achos does dim amser gyda fi. Yn y dyfodol, ar ôl yr arholiadau, hoffwn i gael swydd rhan amser yn Tesco. Mae swyddi rhan amser yn bwysig, achos mae'r arian yn dda, ac hefyd mae'n edrych yn dda ar y CV. Okay, so all of these reading tasks are about part-time work. Okay, so felly, you're going to look for the positives and you're going to look for the negatives. So let's have a look at Caddy wedyn. Caddy says, hello, Caddy ydw i. Dwi'n gweithio rhan amser yn Primark yng nghanol y dref ar y penwythnosau. Dwi'n hoffi'r swydd achos mae'n helpu fi dysgu sgiliau newydd, ac hefyd dwi'n ennill arian, sy'n wych wrth gwrs. Gan ddweud hynny, hoffwn i fynd allan a chymdeithasu gyda fy ffrindiau mwy ar y penwythnos, achos mae'n sbwriel fy mod i'n gweithio trwy'r amser. And let's have a look at Kira. So Kira yn dweud, shwmae pawb, Kira ydw i. Dwi'n astudio yn y chweched. A bod yn onest, dwi ddim eisiau gweithio achos mae'n well gyda fi wneud gwaith cartref yn y nos. Mae'n flinedig. Pan dwi'n mynd i'r brifysgol, bydd rhaid i fi weithio achos dwi eisiau profiad gwaith. Hefyd, dwi eisiau cwrdd â ffrindiau newydd. Now, an important thing for you to realise here is you do not need to understand every single word at all. Okay, you're going to use your skimming and scanning skills here to try and figure out what are the positive points that these three people are saying and what are the negative points. Now, I want you to think back to the first task we did this afternoon, where we were categorizing those words, okay? Can we recognize, think about the fact that we normally associate dim or ddim with a negative. Think about words that will follow achos maen, adjectives. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? So if you saw da, which means good, then the likelihood is that sentence is a positive one. Whereas if you've seen spuriel, then the likelihood is that that sentence is negative. Okay, so have a look now and see if you can spot, and write in the chat for me, see if you can spot 2 positive things between the 3 people. So if you spot one in Jack, then you can find one in Cadi or Kira, and 2 negative things. Now there's more than 4 options here, so any 2 will be correct for positive and any 2 will be correct for negative. And see if you can pop them in the chat. So key phrases would be, remember that we say that dim or ddim or dwi ddim or does dim. Dim is associated with negative. Helpy insinuates helping, so that would be a positive thing. Another key phrase here would be dwi eisiau, I want to or I need to, okay, dwi angen, I need to. So those would be good for you if you're looking for positives. Think as well the negative words that I said there, ofnadwy, spuriel, wastraff amser. Okay, and see, I'm going to give you 2 funud now, 2 minutes to pop your answers in the chat, and then we can discuss what you think 2 positive and negative points are. If you want to try and extend your work, then use the box pink at the top and try and write them in full sentences. So, y mantation ydy this a this, or yr anfantation ydy this and this. So all of them are going to say advantages or good points about working, part-time work, and some of them are going to say negative things about part-time work, why they don't want to have a job or why they don't work. Okay, so pop your answers in the chat and we'll go through them there. And what we can do then is you can check with your answers and you can see if you are correct or not. Okay, and if you're stuck, just have a guess. So look for dwi'n hoffi. Positive is normally dwi'n hoffi. Mae'n helpu. Dwi'n. Look for positive words there. Okay. Oh. Okay, da iawn fyna. Let's start going through the answers then. So I'll give you some clues, okay? So what I've done for you here is I've highlighted the positives and the negatives in the text so you can see. Okay, now what you can do is what I said earlier is do this by process of elimination. Before you even started, what is factual? What is definitely not a positive or a negative? Well, shwmae, Jack a dwi mynd I ysgol Olchfa yn Abertawe. It's a fact, okay? It's not going to be a good or a bad point. But look at the next line. Does dim swydd rhan amser gyda fi. I don't, dim, again, that word. I don't have a part-time job, okay? Achos, does dim amser gyda fi. I don't have time. So does dim gyda fi means I don't have, okay? So if you wanted to say, I don't have a pen, does dim pen gyda fi. Or I don't have a book, does dim llyfr gyda fi. So once again, the does dim gyda fi there straight away tells us that's a negative phrase. Okay, and you can highlight like this if you want to on your own work, okay? But I've just highlighted all the negatives and goch and all the positives and wyrdd, okay? Then Jack goes on to say, I don't have a part-time job because I don't have time. Yn y dyfodol, in the future, ar ôl yr arholiadau, after the exams, hoffwn I gael swydd rhan amser yn Tesco. Okay, so in the future, after the exams, I would like to have a part-time job in Tesco, but it's not really a positive or a negative thing. He's just saying he would like to work. And now he goes on to say why, okay? Mae swyddi rhan amser yn bwysig. So think back to what bwysig is, important. So swyddi a job. So part-time jobs are important. Achos mae'r arian yn dda. The money is good. So once again, that word dda, da, good adjective, positive adjective, insinuates that's a positive sentence. Ac hefyd, mae'n edrych yn dda ar y CV. And it looks good in the CV, okay? So you can see there, one negative and one positive from Jack, those sentences there. Symud ymlaen to Cadi, looking at Cadi wedyn. Cadi says, dwi'n gweithio rhan amser yn Primark. So she works in Primark, yng nghanol y dref, in the centre of town, ar y penwythnos. Okay, once that's a fact, isn't it? But she goes on to say, dwi'n hoffi'r swydd. I like the job, achos mae'n helpu fi dysgu sgiliau newydd. Dwi'n hoffi insinuates positive, and helpu gyda, helpu fi, helps me, Dysgu sgiliau newydd, learn new skills. And also, dwi'n ennill arian, I earn money. Sy'n wych, which is great, of course. Okay? She uses a phrase there which tells us straight away that she's going to go on to the negative. Gan ddweud hynny. But by saying this, hoffwn I fynd allan. I would like to go out a chymdeithasu, socialise, gyda fy ffrindiau mwy. Now that word mwy means more. Okay, so she'd like to do something more, which implies she doesn't have enough of it now. Achos mae'n sbwriel fy mod i'n gweithio trwy'r amser. It's rubbish that I work trwy'r amser all the time. Okay, so once again, she's got both positives and negatives, which you could have referred to. And then you've got, siwmai pawb, Cira ydw i. Dwi'n astudio yn y chweched. I'm studying in sixth form. And we've also got, a bod yn honest, dwi ddim eisiau gweithio, so dwi ddim eisiau. I don't want to, okay? I don't want to gweithio work, achos mae'n well gyda fi. Now that's a nice phrase for you to use. I prefer. Mae'n well gyda fi gwneud gwaith cartref. Do you remember what gwaith cartref is? Homework, yes, I am. So I prefer doing my homework in the night, so that's why she doesn't want to work. Mae'n flinedig. It's tiring, okay? Pan dwi'n mynd I brifysgol, when I go to university, bydd rhaid I fi weithio. I will have to work. Achos dwi eisiau profiad gwaith. I want, that word again, eisiau, I want profiad gwaith, work experience. I want experience, profiad. Hefyd, also, dwi eisiau, I want to cwrdd a ffrindiau newydd, to meet new friends, okay? So there's a couple of phrases there which are, you know, standard phrases for telling us something is positive or something is negative. So always think about the words you already know which are positive. See if you can spot them. Read the whole sentence from start to finish, and that should help you recognise the positive and the negative points. Okay, right, and symud ymlaen te, moving on, we're looking at cywir, anghywir, true or false. So we've got Glenn and we've got Sally. So the same thing again. I want you to recognise whether the word is true or false. So Glenn says, well, yn fy marn I, mae ysgol yn holl bwysig, exceptionally important. Fy hoff bwnc ydy Cymraeg, achos dwi'n mwynhau gwyddoniaeth. Ond mae'n gas gyda fi Saesneg, achos mae gormod o ysgrifennu. Pam? Wel, mae fy ffrind yna'n cytuno gyda fi, achos hoff bwnc Sam ydy Saesneg, ond llenyddiaeth. So Glenn says, well, in my opinion, school is holl bwysig, very important. Fy hoff bwnc, my favourite subject is Cymraeg, chemistry. Achos dwi'n mwynhau gwyddoniaeth. I enjoy science. Ond mae'n gas gyda fi. Remember now, that's a different way to say I hate. So I hate English, achos mae gormod o ysgrifennu. Mae fy ffrind yna'n gytuno, my friend disagrees, because of Sam's favourite subject, hoff bwnc Sam, Saesneg. So I hate English, but Sam likes English. But literature, so Sam likes English literature. Okay, then you've got Sally, who says, fel arfer, usually, dwi'n hoffi ysgol, achos mae'n flasus, ond dydy'r cinio ddim yn iach o gwbl. So I like the school dinners because they're tasty, but they're ddim yn iach. They're not healthy at all. Bob dydd dwi'n bwyta creision, ond dim ffrwythau. So every day I eat crisps, but not fruit. Weithiau dwi'n bwyta brechdanau, ond mae'n gas gyda fi frechdanau caws. So sometimes I eat sandwiches, but I hate cheese sandwiches. Ycha fi. Okay, so we're going to once again use our skimming and scanning skills here. Don't have to recognise every single word, and we're going to look at the cywir, anghywir task, so the true or false task. So it's an important reading task we're doing here. We're going to try and recognise whether we can match the wording in the text to the wording in the question and see if we can work it out, okay? So mae Glenn yn hoffi gwersi gwyddoniaeth. Glenn likes science lessons. So what I want you to do is go back to Glenn's paragraph and see if Glenn says anything about gwyddoniaeth. Now, Glenn actually says fy hoff bwnc ydy Cymraeg. So what you've got to do there is you've got to realise that Cymraeg, chemistry, is a science, and Glenn says his favourite subject is chemistry and he enjoys gwyddoniaeth. So that statement there would be cywir. Okay, it doesn't use the word hoffi gwersi, but the information is the same. So the answer would be cywir, true. Okay. Number 2, cas bwnc Sam ydy Saesneg. Now, hoff bwnc we know is favourite subject. So cas bwnc is the opposite, least favourite subject. Okay, so Sam's least favourite subject is Saesneg, is English. Now, what you've got to do here is look in the text for bwnc and Sam in the same sentence. So bwnc is subject and Sam is obviously the person. So look for bwnc and Sam in the same sentence, which we've got in the last but one line. And it says hoff bwnc Sam, so Sam's favourite subject. Now, is hoff bwnc the same as cas bwnc? No. So that statement there would be anghywir, false, okay? The third one down, mae Sally yn bwyta'n afiach bob dydd. Sally eats unhealthy food bob dydd, every day. Now, once again, what I would advise here is looking for bob dydd in the text. And if we look at Sally's second line, she says, bob dydd dwi'n bwyta creision, ond dim ffrwythau. So every day she eats crisps and no fruit. So you need to decide now, is that statement correct? Does she eat healthy food? Well, no, because she eats creision. She eats crisps. She doesn't eat fruit, she just eats crisps. So I would say she eats unhealthy foods. That would be cywir, okay? Because every day she eats these foods, but no fruit. Rhif 4 wedyn, mae'r cinio ysgol fel arfer yn iach. The school dinners are fel arfer, usually healthy. So what you need to do now is go to the text again, look at what it says about iach. So look for cinio and iach in the same sentence. And it says, usually the school dinners are tasty, but, and this is where it gets confusing because the sentence says, dydi'r cinio ddim yn iach. The dinner is not. So if you see dydi and ddim, you should be recognizing straight away that that's a negative. So it's not healthy. So are the school dinners usually healthy? Well, no, because she says that's anghywir. They're not healthy at all. Okay. And then the last one, mae hi'n casau brechdanau caws. So think back to what I told you at the start. Another way to say dwi'n casau is mae'n gas gyda fi. Okay. I hate. So mae'n gas gyda fi and dwi'n casau means the same thing. So does she say anything about hating cheese sandwiches? Yes, she says mae'n gas gyda fi brechdanau caws ycha fi. So that one is cywir. Okay, true. She does hate cheese sandwiches. So we had cywir, anghywir, and cywir there. Okay, so we're going to move on for the last part of the session then to look at tebyg neu'n wahanol. So similar or different. Now, you can use this in your speaking work, you can use this in your writing work and the reading work. So this skill is really important to practice. Okay, so we've got Menna, and my Menna wedi ysgrifennu. She's written about living in Caerdydd, byw yn Caerdydd. And she has said why she basically likes living in Cardiff, what she doesn't like about it. And you have to recognize or be able to select one thing that you're similar to, or one thing that you agree with, essentially, and one thing that you're different to Menna about, okay? So I'm going to read Menna's paragraph, and we're going to go through the keywords, and then we'll look at how you would respond to this. So, Siamai, Menna ydw i. Dwi'n mwynhau byw yng Nghaerdydd, achos mae nifer o gyfleusterau da yma, fel y stadiwm, siopau da, a rinc sglefrio iâ. Fy hoff atyniad ydy stadiwm y Principality, achos dwi wrth fy modd yn gwylio gemau rygbi yn y stadiwm gyda fy mrawd. Mae'n llawer o hwyl. Ar y llaw arall, mae'r ddinas yn gallu bod yn swnllyd, ac mae llawer o draffig bob dydd. Dwi'n casau'r traffig yn y bore. Okay. So Menna has said, Siamai Menna ydw i. I enjoy living in Cardiff because there are a number of cyfleusterau da, good facilities, such as the stadium, the siopau da, the good shops, the rink sglefrio iâ, the ice skating rink, and my favourite attraction is the Stadiwm y Principality, the Principality Stadium, because I'm in my element, wrth fy modd yn gwylio gemau rygbi, because I love watching the gemau rygbi gyda fy mrawd, okay? Mae'n llawer o hwyl, it's lots of fun. Ar y llaw arall, on the other hand, the city, y dinas, yn gallu bod yn swnllyd, can be noisy, swnllyd, noisy. Ac mae llawer o draffig bob dydd, and there's lots of traffic every day. Dwi'n casau'r traffic yn y bore. I hate the traffic in the morning. So we've got a couple of key phrases here, okay? Dwi'n debyg I. I want you to practice saying that for me. Dwi'n debyg I. I am similar to. And then we've got dwi'n wahanol I. I am different to. And we've also got a really useful phrase here, which is hefyd, also. So I am similar to so-and-so because I also like this. Or I am different to this person because I don't like this o gwbl at all. Okay, so have a look at a couple of suggestions I put here. Okay, now you don't have to understand everything here. Okay, so for example, Mena says, fy hoff atyniad, my favourite attraction in Cardiff is the Principality Stadium because I love watching rugby games in the stadium. So if you also love watching the rugby in the stadium, you would be debyg, you would be similar to Mena. Okay. If you hated watching the rugby, then you would be wahanol, would be different on that particular point. She also says, dwi'n casau'r traffic yn y bore. I hate the traffic in the morning. Now, if you also hate the traffic that you experience in the morning, you could say, dwi'n debyg, I am similar to, because I also hate the traffic. Okay. Now, Mena yn byw yn Caerdydd, she lives in Cardiff. So if you don't live in Cardiff, then you would be wahanol, different. Whereas if you did live in Cardiff, you could say, dwi'n debyg, I am similar because I also live in Cardiff. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick one thing that you're similar about and one thing that you're different to this person. And I would like you to use the phrases, dwi'n debyg I and dwi'n wahanol I. So I'll give you an example, okay? So Mena says, dwi'n hoffi'r siopau da. I like the good shops. So I would say, dwi'n debyg I Mena. I'm similar to Mena. Achos dwi'n hoffi siopa yng Nghaerdydd hefyd. I like shopping in Cardiff also. And then I would try and extend my answer. Fy hoff siop ydi Zara. Achos mae'n ffasiynol. Okay? Now, how can you extend your answers here? Well, quite simply, you can add idioms, you can add connectives, you can add third-person opinions. There's lots you can do to improve your answer. So, for example, you could say, a bod yn honest, dwi'n debyg I Mena, or a bod yn honest, dwi'n wahanol I Mena. Or you could say, ar y cyfan, which is a phrase we had at the beginning of the session, on the whole, dwi'n debyg I Mena. On the whole, I'm similar to Mena. But you could say, dwi'n wahanol weithiau. I am different I ryw raddau, to some extent. Okay? So what I'd like you to do now, I'd like you to write something you're similar to and pop it in the chat using dwi'n debyg I. And I'd like you to write something dwi'n wahanol I and pop that in the chat as well. And then we're going to discuss our answers and see how we can improve them even further. If you've done that already and you're looking for a bit of a challenge, then try and say as well, not only are you similar to her, but do you agree or ti'n cytuno? And then give 2 extended reasons as well. So the similar and different questions are very similar to the agreeing and disagreeing questions. But if they asked you, if 2 people, so if they give you 2 reading pieces and they would say what's similar between the people, then you'd obviously say, my Mena yn hoffi this, and my Jack yn hoffi this. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of minutes now to pop your answer in the chat, and then we'll go through the answers and we'll have a discussion from there. Okay, so 2 munud now, try and get in your idioms, try and get in your connectives, try and get in your third person, try and get in your past tense and your future tense if you can. Remember, always try and look to extend your work. Don't just leave it at, I am similar because. Okay, so 2 munud now, 2 minutes, and we'll go through them. Any questions, pop them in the chat box. Okay, we just had a really good question come in, which says, can you use 2 really important phrases? ar un llaw on one hand and ar y llaw arall on the other hand. So practice saying those. Ar un llaw on one hand, and then you've got ar y llaw arall on the other hand. So you could say ar un llaw on one hand, dwi'n debyg I Mena achos, I'm similar to Mena because of this. Ond, but ar y llaw arall, on the other hand, I am not similar to Mena because of this. What you've got to be careful of is that you don't contradict yourself, okay? But it's definitely worth you using on one hand, but on the other hand this. Or you could use the phrases like I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I ryw raddau, to some extent. Or you could use a phrase such as weithiau, dwi'n debyg, sometimes I'm similar to Mena, but on the whole, ar y cyfan, dwi'n wahanol achos. But you need to be using exact wording from the text if you're saying that you're similar or different. So find something she says and say if you're similar, and then find something she says and say if you're different. Okay, so yeah, I'll give you another couple of minutes to write that in the chat and we'll go through the answers. But yeah, definitely that's a good thing to know that you could use on one hand, on the other hand, and you're getting your idioms in there. You could even say that your friend agrees with you or your friend doesn't agree with you. Diane, some lovely answers coming in. I like this one. Ar un llaw, dwi'n debyg I Mena achos dwi'n dwlu ar gwylio rugby yn y stadiwm. So I'm similar to Mena because I love watching rugby in the stadium, which is really nice answer because you're not just copying what she says. So she has said, dwi wrth fy modd, I'm in my element. So you've understood that and changed it to dwi'n dwlu ar. So I love watching rugby in the stadium, ac ar y teledu. And that phrase again then, ar y llaw arall, on the other hand, dwi'n wahanol I Mena, I'm different, achos dwi ddim yn byw yn Caerdydd. I don't live yn Caerdydd, in Cardiff. And then, by extending your work, of course, going on to say where you do live. So, dwi'n byw yn Abertawe, I live in Swansea, ac yn fy marn I, mae Abertawe yn ddiddorol. And then you could also compare Cardiff and Swansea if you didn't live in Cardiff, for example. You could use phrases like mae'n well gyda fi. Okay, let's have a look here as well. I fod yn honest, dwi'n wahanol, achos mae'n gas gyda fi. I am different because once again, I don't like watching rugby this time. Mae'n gas gyda fi, I hate watching rugby. Fodd bynnag, another lovely idiom. Fodd bynnag, however, dwi'n debyg, I'm similar, achos dwi'n casau'r traffig. And once again, an extension, mae'r traffig yn wastraff amser. Traffic is a waste of time. Okay, so I'm really, really pleased that you're trying to extend your work even further by using a reason as to why you're different, as to why you're similar. Okay, one thing that I would be aware of as well is, as I said just now, you don't contradict yourself. So don't say something like, I'm similar to Mena because of this, but I'm different to her because of the same thing. So what the tip I gave you earlier about the highlighting or underlining, when you read and skim this piece of writing, okay, go back through it and underline or highlight what you're going to agree with or what you're similar with in one colour, what you're different to in another colour, and you know then that those are the ones you're going to focus on. You may be similar in more than one way, and you may be different in more than one way, but as long as you can find one good reason and always use the one that you can talk the most about, then that's obviously going to help you in your work. Okay, so well, I'm really pleased with those answers, so da iawn, and really, really good use of idioms there to connect your similarities to your differences. What I'd like you to do now then, to finish off in the last couple of minutes, is I want you to write down in the chat box, please, all of the positive words you can think of. So I'm going to give you 1 minute, because when we're looking at reading tasks, the biggest way for us to differentiate what's positive and negative is to look for keywords, okay? So can you write down in the chat as many positive words as you can think of? Positive patterns, so dwi'n hoffi, anhygoel, great, ffasiynol, bwysig, defnyddiol. Oh, Diane, another lovely answer coming in for that last task about dwi'n debyg. So Diane done really well. That, ardderchog. So let's get writing now positive words, positive patterns, okay? Oh, we got some nice ones coming in. Da iawn. We've got wych, which means great. We've got diddorol, which means interesting, and with the mutation is ddiddorol. Da iawn. What other ones have we got here? Da, simply, da iawn, something you hear every day. Ardderchog, excellent. Anhygoel, amazing. Another one that we've had in, which is llawn hwyl, full of fun. That's a good one. Helpu gyda sgiliau, helps with skills. So that's that helpu gyda being a positive phrase. Doniol, funny. That's a good one. Mwynhau, enjoy. That's a nice one as well. Mwynhau is obviously positive because it means enjoy. Hoffi, dwliar, casau. Right, what I want you to do now then is think of any negative ones you can think of. So 1 minute, I pop them in the chat. Negative ones, opposite. How do you know if a sentence is negative? What gives you that clue? Down, another nice one. Mae'n ffordd dda o. It's a good way of. Okay. Negative ones we've had in. Wastraff amser, waste of time. Really good one. The word wastraff meaning waste. Okay. Wastraff arian, waste of money. Obvious one. Sbwriel, rubbish. Mae'n gas gyda fi, o dwi'n casau, I hate. Or remember that phrase we had earlier? Does dim. Or dwi ddim. Does dim, there isn't. Or dydy something ddim yn. Dydy John ddim yn. John isn't. Okay. Ddim very often gives you a clue. Another one we've had in, which is a good one, is anodd, difficult, or wastraff egni, a waste of energy, for example. What else have we had? Let's have a look here. Dup. Dup means silly or stupid. Gwaethaf, that's a nice one. Gwaethaf, the worst. So you could say something ydi'r gorau, something is the best, or something ydi'r gwaethaf is the worst. Okay? Da iawn, ardderchog. So you can recognize now then both positive and negative words. And that's a really good way for you to go about reading tasks where you've got to look for positive points, you've got to look for problems, because obviously the problems, you're going to be looking for the negative things. When you've got to recognize positive words, you're looking for the positive, happy ones, like dwi'n hoffi, dwi'n mwynhau, dwi'n dwliar, bendigedig, hwyl, etc. Those types of words. When you're saying if you're similar or different, try and use, if you can, a different adjective to what has been used in there. So instead of my hockey and wych, try and use my hockey and bendigedig, because not only does it show understanding, but it shows that you can take that step further and put it into your own words. Okay. Well, diolch yn fawr iawn, iawn, iawn am ddod i'r session heddi. Thank you very much for joining this session today. I hope it's been of use to you. If you have any questions, then please feel free to pop them in the chat. So far in the last 4 sessions, we've covered things for the speaking exam, we've covered commands, we've covered looking at advice, we've covered questions today, we've had a look at positives and negative questions for today. We've also looked at translating and correcting. So if you did miss any of those, then you can go back and watch them at any time. And please feel free to contact if you have any questions. But diolch yn fawr, hwyl fawr.